And the next major case I'd like to mention is the Nebraska case. In 1988, I received a phone call from Lincoln, Nebraska. One of my college friends said, "Ted, you better get back here." There was a major investigation headed up by John DeCamp, former state senator, a good friend of mine. And John had taken on the task of exposing a group of high-level politicians in the state of Nebraska and some of the top businessmen. As a result of this case, the kids who were part of the network came forward. There were 80 children because of the publicity on a pedophile pornographic arrest. 4 of them gave statements. 2 of the 4 later recanted. 2 stood by what they originally initially said. And what we developed there was that children were being taken out of orphanages and foster homes, driven to Sioux City, Iowa, 184 miles away, and flown to Washington, D.C. for sex orgy parties with congressmen and senators. The person in charge is a fellow named Larry King, a black man, not Larry King Live. And he was president of the Franklin Savings and Loan, which was a savings and loan established to help the minorities. He had a salary of $17,000 a year. He was paying $5,000 a month for a condominium in Washington, D.C. for these parties. So the official photographer of the group was a fellow named Russell Nelson. And Rusty was a farm boy from Nebraska. He had never seen the bright lights of the big city. And he was enamored with the rich and the famous and the jet airplanes and the trips around the world, actually. And he was a professional photographer, and he started out by working in a gay club, taking pictures for the club, and he was recruited from there into the sex ring. Rusty was not himself homosexual, I'm convinced of it. I've spent quite a bit of time with him. He, in connection with his work, would sneak a roll of film in on occasion when he was photographing these acts, because they were taking the, quote, official film away from him as soon as it was completed. Rusty sent these pictures back home, and he also scattered them around the United States, negatives and photographs themselves. He was sold for sex by Larry King to a businessman in Washington, D.C., and he said to the businessman, "Let me go in the bathroom and wash up," and instead of coming back out, he went out the back window and he disappeared. On the back table back there, I've got a videotape that says "Conspiracy of Silence." Let me tell you about this, and this is where I came up with the idea to grab Rusty and go find these pictures. There was a TV crew from Yorkshire Television in England that came over in the early 1990s. They were here for 7 months, and they filmed this whole case, the one I'm telling you about. It was to be aired on Discovery Channel May the 4th, 1994, and even listed in the TV guide. But at the last minute, somebody came in and bought up the rights and ordered that all the copies be destroyed. I hold in my hand a bootleg copy of that show. And what we are going to do, Rusty and I and John DeCamp, we're going to complete this story, and nobody's going to buy us off. I don't know if we can get it on Discovery Channel or not, but we're going to do our own video. We're going to basically include the information here on this video, and we're going to update it. We're going to include the $1 million judgment. We're going to include information about more details about the kidnapping ring, and including an interview with Noreen Gosh. Noreen Gosh's 12-year-old son was kidnapped back in 1982, Johnny Gosh. There's a book out. It's called Why Johnny Can't Come Home. And I was supposed to have a case of them here tonight, but something happened. I guess, I don't know, maybe they're in the mail someplace. But Paul Benassi helped kidnap Johnny Gosh. And he gave us a statement to that effect. And they took Johnny that first day. He was kidnapped on a Sunday. He was delivering his Sunday Des Moines Register. Took him to a safe house in Sioux City, Iowa. They kept him there. And according to information developed by the mother, Noreen Gosh, the snatching of the child was ordered by a fellow named Michael Aquino. Michael Aquino, head of the Temple of Set out of San Francisco. This is in her book. And Michael Aquino wrote me a letter because I quoted him someplace and challenged me on it, but I said, hey, it's in the book. It's in Noreen Gosh's book. As a result of the investigation, we learned also that there was an international child kidnapping ring operating out of the Midwest and all the way into Washington, D.C. Paul Benassi, one of the kids who I interviewed for 5 hours, I've got him on 5 hours of tape, by the way. I need to make that tape available to you, but I'm so busy, I'm kind of like a one-armed paper hanger, that I just haven't had time to do it. But Paul Benassi, when he was 10, 11, 12 years old, was recruited by these people to be one of them and to act as a buffer and in shopping centers, parks, public places, to attract the children his age over near the car. The adults involved in the ring would grab them and they would kidnap them. The kids, of course, talked about satanic cult ceremonies. They talked about the kidnapping ring. Paul's life has been turned upside down because he refused to recant, as did Alicia Owens, the other person who refused to recant. Alicia's still serving time in prison for lying to the grand jury. She was convicted of that. When she was 14 years old, she had sex with the chief of police, Bob Wadman. That's what she said. And the other kids backed her up. Other top businessmen who were identified were Harold Anderson, publisher of the Omaha World Herald, the head of the Society page in Omaha, Eugene Mahoney, who was a former Vice Squad police officer in Omaha and is now head of the Forestry Service for the state of Nebraska. And the list goes on and on and on. The pedophile ring, homosexual pedophile ring, they were transporting these kids from Omaha to Des Moines, to Minneapolis, to Milwaukee, to Madison, and back to Omaha. So, unfortunately, the investigator prior to my entering the case, Gary Caradori, had learned about some pictures. And these pictures were the smoking gun of the case. Pictures of politicians having sex with children and other unbelievable acts, boys and girls and so forth.